In this video, we travel along Old Highway 80 by way of El Cajon Boulevard in San Diego to check out some of the sights. On this trip, we follow the 1926 to 1953 route of Highway 80 from the intersection of El Cajon and Euclid in the east to El Cajon and Park in the west. And here we are at the intersection of Euclid and El Cajon. The reason that we chose this intersection as our starting point is because up until 1926, the main highway coming into San Diego from the east would actually turn to the south at Euclid until it hit University and then travel into San Diego via University and 4th Avenue into downtown San Diego. In 1926, they changed the alignment of the highway and instead had it follow El Cajon Boulevard to the west and turn to the south at Park Boulevard. Highway 80 would follow along El Cajon Boulevard until 1953, when its alignment was moved again to where Interstate 8 is today. Now, Highway 80 doesn't get the attention that its more famous cousin Route 66 does, but one could argue that Highway 80 is just as important, if not more so, than Route 66. Highway 80 crossed 8 states: Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and California, stretching a total of 2,726 miles. And by the 1950s, more people were entering California by Highway 80 than they were via Route 66. And Highway 80 has a ton of history associated with it as well. Just to name a few things, the Selma, Alabama Voting Rights March happened on Highway 80, Bonnie and Clyde rode on Highway 80, and the legendary Western film star Tom Mix died on Highway 80 in Arizona. On the right, we are approaching Hoover High School. The school opened in 1930 and was the alma mater of Baseball Hall of Famer Ted Williams. In addition to Williams, another famous baseball star also attended Hoover High School, the San Diego Chicken. The school was renovated in 2015, and the renovations actually brought the look of the school back to the way it looked in the 1930s and 1940s. This part of El Cajon Boulevard, between Euclid and Highland Avenue, is known as Little Saigon, and there are a ton of Vietnamese restaurants. So if you're a fan of Vietnamese food, it's definitely an area to check out. The intersection we're at now is Fairmount, which is where Highway 395 hit Highway 80, and 395 would then follow the path of Highway 80 all the way into downtown San Diego. While there are some newer buildings along this stretch of El Cajon Boulevard, a good portion of the buildings do tend to skew older, giving you a good idea of what it would have been like to drive down Highway 80 in the early 1950s, though the median was added much later. What we are approaching now as we're about to cross over Interstate 15 is a public transit station that has some really cool neon lights. There's actually quite a bit of cool neon along El Cajon Boulevard, making it a pretty fun drive at night as well. On the left-hand side of the road, there's a pretty cool Highway 80 mural towards the top of this building. There are a couple of other buildings along the drive that have Highway 80 murals, and there's historic Highway 80 signage along the road, though nothing on the level of what you would see on Route 66 driving through a Route 66 town. Then again, there's no Highway 80 song as far as I know. Our next stop is coming up on the right, and it's not really historic, but it is definitely unique. This 7-Eleven is what is known as a 7-Eleven Evolution store, which is supposed to be the future of 7-Elevens. There are only 5 of these stores, and this is the only one on the West Coast. And while they feature the normal 7-Eleven things like coffee, Big Gulps, and Slurpees, they also feature things like a taco shop, milkshakes, smoothies, ice cream, and even home electronics. I should also note that we made this trip on a Saturday afternoon. On a weekday, depending on what time of day it is, El Cajon Boulevard could be a lot busier than it was on our trip. Definitely, the best time to make the drive is on the weekends, or at night when the lights are lit up after traffic has subsided. Because really, sitting in traffic is just no fun at all. As we cross over the 805 freeway, on the left side of the road there's an electric station that has an older looking building in the middle of it. All around the building there are busts of what appear to be Ben Franklin and others, and we've looked online but have not been able to find out any information on this building. So if anybody knows anything about it or its history, please let us know in the comments. The clock on the building on the right-hand side of the road is currently only right twice a day. On the right-hand side of the road is Redford's Restaurant, which has been around since 1949 and is open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and has some pretty cool neon if you drive by at night. Note the Jack in the Box restaurant on the right-hand side of the road. The very first Jack in the Box was actually on El Cajon Boulevard, though further east than where we started this trip. On the left you can see the North Park Water Tower, which was built in 1924 and was the largest elevated tank in the world when it was constructed. It held more than 1 million gallons of water. It's been decommissioned and empty since the 1990s, but in 2015 the American Society of Civil Engineers designated it as a local historic civil engineering landmark. Coming up on the left-hand side of the road is the fourth oldest restaurant in San Diego that's still in operation, the Chicken Pie Shop. They've been in operation since 1938, and we highly recommend getting one of their chicken pie meals. Coming up on the right-hand side of the road is San Diego Flora Supplies, which have been in that building since 1982. And if you couldn't get into Rutford's, there's a Denny's on the left-hand side of the road. While this area is firmly within the city of San Diego now, back in the 1940s and 50s, it was more on the outskirts of the city, which made our next stop an attractive destination for celebrities who came to San Diego during that period and wanted to get away from the hustle and bustle of the city center. The Lafayette Hotel was built in a grand colonial style in 1946 and was frequented by movie stars such as Bob Hope and Ava Gardner. The hotel's swimming pool was even designed by Tarzan star and Olympic medalist Johnny Westmuller, and their Mississippi room still features a shell for the band. Next to the hotel used to be the Red Fox Room restaurant, but they've since moved across the street. Passing the hotel, we're coming to the intersection of El Cajon and Alabama, where we can get an idea of how the road has changed over the years. As we come to the intersection, here is the same view from 1942. It looks a lot different, but still somehow recognizable. Coming up next, right in the center of the road, is the Boulevard sign, which looks awesome at night. I've always thought that this sign is fantastic, because it doesn't tell you what, but it lets you know that there is something special about this road. And here's a picture of it I took at night recently. What a great job by whoever came up with this sign. Now we are approaching Park Boulevard, which is where Highway 80 turns south to head into downtown San Diego up until 1948. From 1948 until 1953, Highway 80 would continue east from here on Washington Street until it would hit what is now the 163 freeway and turn south. And one last piece of history, at the intersection of El Cajon and Park Boulevard is the Teachers Training Annex No. 1, which was completed in 1910 and built in the Italian Renaissance Revival style. The building is currently owned by the city of San Diego and is being used for storage. So that's our look at Highway 80 via El Cajon Boulevard in San Diego and some of the sights you could see along the road. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing, and we'll see you next week.